What's up, everybody? We're here to go over UFC Vegas 83 Song versus Gutierrez. But real quick, I'm going to go over the results for the last card real quick as far as the betting goes. It was all around a pretty good card for me. I didn't pick very many fights wrong. Um, I did have, I thought it was just a decent card, in the beginning. I didn't realize that some of my bigger parlays had hit as well, because I had Medic on them, but that was before his opponent got changed, so that fight didn't count. So I just had assumed they didn't hit. And then when I checked my balance, I was like, whoa, yeah, so these are my posted bets that I posted ahead of time. 1 unit play on Michael Morales at minus 250, a plus money play on Rafael Estevam. That was a half unit play. And then I had a 2 fight parlay of Alexander and Talbot. It was a minus 150. And it was a 1 unit play. That one didn't hit, obviously. And then if we come over here and look at these, uh, obviously I lost some value on these because Medic dropped off of them. But I had a 3 fight parlay basically since Medic dropped off. That wasn't very much money. I mean, I probably only had $50 on it. And then I had a 6 fight parlay, which turned into a 5 fight parlay because Medic dropped off. Um, and then I had a bigger one hit. This is one that actually paid off pretty decent. I think I had $50 on this one. Lost some value because Medic dropped off, and then Ogden's fight was ruled a no contest, which was ridiculous. I didn't agree with that at all. I mean, he was winning that fight dominantly, very impressive, and yeah, I think what they should have done there is kind of like they did in the Alexander Romanov fight. I don't remember who exactly it was he was fighting, but he got kicked in the balls. He was gassed out. He didn't want to continue. Um, and so they had the judges score the fight up until that point, and Romanov still got the win. So I think that's what they should have done there. But hey, I mean, it just sucks. I hope Trey got paid, his win money because he looked great, and he was on his way to winning that fight. So yeah, I had that, and then the only one of these, like I said, that I didn't post ahead of time was this one. I added this right before the fights. My two most confident, picks on the card were Estevam and Michael Morales, and so I went ahead and parlayed those together. It was a 1 unit play, so I had $1,000 on them, and that came out to cashed out for $2,597. So yeah, man, all around a pretty good card. That's unit and a half profit just on that one. And Estevam, he didn't look as good as I expected him to. His conditioning never really looked bad on the regional scene. So I was a little surprised at how he looked in the third round, but maybe it was the bad weight cut. Who knows? But I won't be loading up on him, again anytime soon until I see more out of him. But either way, at least I came out with with the win and came out with some good money, man. So yeah, let's take a look at this card, guys. We lost a lot of fights on this card. The because of all the changes and everything, all these fights dropped off and everything. The main site that I use Bet Online, which I pulled all my money off of there. They do have the lines up for this on there, but all these lines for this, they only have one fight off this card up on Bovada, and it's the main event. So y'all are gonna have to wait, for my parlays. If you follow me on social media, I'll be posting them on there, as soon as they hit on Bovada. I'm not going to go through the trouble of transferring money all back onto another site just to do the parlays when I mainly use Bovada anyway. So I'll get those out as soon as I can, man. Y'all can check my social medias and check them out there. And please like and subscribe, guys. I'd really appreciate it a lot, and it really helped me out. Finally got over 500 subscribers. I'm really excited about that, man. Thank all you guys for your support. And if you're new to the channel, what I do is I go through and I give out my pick for each of the fights, and at the end of the video, I give out my bets for the card. And if you're not interested in watching my videos, you just want to see my picks and my bets, you can go over to my social medias. Um, High Kick underscore Fight Picks is TikTok and Instagram, and then there's a High Kick Fight Picks group on Facebook. It's pretty easy to find. So, and also this show's available on Spotify, Pandora, all your major streaming platforms if you want to listen on there. So yeah, man, we lost quite a few fights. Most of these were all road to UFC fights that we lost, and I was kind of looking forward to some of these, man. A few of these fights, like especially, I'm not sure exactly how to say the name right. Kawin Lee. I was looking forward to his fight. He's very exciting. Um, I would have, I would have liked to have seen that, man. Some of these guys are pretty good, man. Some it sucks that they had to move it back to the Apex, and that we aren't going to get to see all those. And yeah, man. First up, we got Hayana Dos Santos. Hope I'm saying that right. Hayana Hayana Dos Santos versus Talita Alencar. And this is one that was kind of thrown together really quickly just because they needed some fights on this card. Dos Santos is 28 years old, 5'2" with a 62-inch reach. She is 14-6, and this is going to be her UFC debut, and she's a minus 135 favorite. And the first thing that jumps off the page at me looking at this fight is both these girls are pretty small for the UFC anyway. It looks like Hayana was fighting at 205 pounds before this, at least her last few fights. And yeah, her last fight at 115 was against Denise Gomes on the Contender Series, and she didn't look terrible in that fight. She at least had a good first round. She landed some good combinations in the first. She just didn't really have the power to hurt Gomes, and kind of just got the hit with the more meaningful shots. She's worked a lot on her kickboxing, but she's primarily known for her grappling. 2 wins by knockout, 8 wins by submission. She has a really nice armbar, a lot of wins with that. She's going to have a 3.5-inch reach advantage here. Throws nice calf kicks, and she may have the striking advantage, but I don't think she's going to have the power advantage here. She doesn't seem to hit very hard. She is going to be the smaller fighter in this matchup, even though she's slightly taller and has a longer reach. She's taking on Alencar. She is 33 years old, 5'1" with a 58.5-inch reach, very short reach. She's 4-0-1 because her fight in the Contender Series that she's coming off of was a draw. And it's going to be her UFC debut. She's a plus 115 underdog. And she's a six-time world champion jiu-jitsu practitioner. She has nice takedowns, good high crotch takedowns and double legs. Very good grappling, man. She will have the advantage there for sure. She looks to be a lot stronger and more muscular than Santos. She's coming off the draw in the Contender Series, like I said, where she didn't win the contract, but like I said, I think they're just desperate for fights, and that's why they ended up calling these two. And here she is. So I mean, she got a lot of takedowns in that matchup and control time in that fight. Clearly won the first 2 rounds, but she was just kind of way too small in that matchup. She didn't do a lot of damage in that fight, and she seemed very tired at the end of the second round and just got the crap kicked out of her in the third, and got 10-8'd in the third round. And I believe they still gave the contract to her opponent over her, even though she won the first 2 rounds pretty dominantly. I do think her grappling is going to be good enough to get her the win here. She's fighting someone smaller than her at least, or at least close to her size here. And I think she may get an early submission, or if anything, win the first 2 rounds and then kind of coast through the third with her wrestling and win a decision. But her grappling is that good that I think she should be able to come out with a win here. Next up, we got Stephanie Egger taking on Luana Santos. And Egger is 35 years old. She's 5'6" with a 68-inch reach. She is 8-4 and 3-3 in the UFC. She's a plus 170 underdog. And looking at Egger's record on paper, 3-3 in the UFC doesn't really sound that great. But look at who she's lost to: Myra Bueno Silva, Tracy Cortez. Her last loss was a bad one, I guess. That girl was making her UFC debut. Alexiva, I think her name was. And, her best win probably so far was over Eileen Perez, who has looked pretty good since then. Egger has a judo background, good throws and hip tosses, dangerous submissions, 3 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission. And all but one of her wins have been by finish. So she's a pretty exciting fighter. She's been submitted twice in the UFC, so maybe submission defense is her weak area. 5-time Swiss judo champion. She's never been knocked out in her career. She's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage in this fight. Striking isn't the best. She lands on average 1.93 strikes per minute and absorbs about the same amount per minute. So doesn't land very much on her feet. Does her best work on the ground. 40% takedown accuracy, 50% takedown defense. And as far as the numbers go, her only impressive stat is she averages 3 takedowns per 15 minutes on average. That's pretty decent, but everything else is just kind of not the greatest. She's good at using her opponent's momentum to end up on top and using that head throw and stuff like that. You would think with Santos coming up a weight class here, Egger would be the bigger, stronger fighter in this matchup, but we won't really know until we see them in there together. Sometimes, on paper it looks bad or whatever, or looks close, and then Egger looks way bigger. You don't know. If Egger can get her grappling going here, she could absolutely win this fight. It's completely possible. She's more experienced. She's got the UFC experience, and yeah, it's completely possible, man. And she's taking on Luana Santos. She's 23 years old, 5'6" with a 67-inch reach. She is 6-1 and 1-0 in the UFC, and she's a minus 195 favorite. So Santos looked amazing in her debut, but you have to consider it was against Juliana Miller, who hasn't looked good at all in the UFC yet. Unfortunately, I'm a big Miller fan. I was a fan of her on the show, but she clearly has a lot of work, a lot of work to do, and is still developing as a fighter. So we are gonna get a better look at Santos here and see how well she's really gonna do against a seasoned UFC fighter who's had wins in the UFC. Santos has a clear advantage in the striking in this matchup, big power advantage on the feet. She has 1 win by knockout, 3 wins by submission. Hasn't really fought anybody with a lot of experience or anybody with more than 5 fights on their record. All serious things to think about. As well as being up, a weight class where you're considering putting money on her on this spot. You got to consider all these things. Um, these are all things that make me hesitate when considering putting money on her. So um, Santos also has a judo background. I'm not sure if it's as high level as Eggers or not. Santos can be a little wild on the feet, but is accurate with her punches. It seemed like every punch she landed was hurting Juliana Miller in that fight. I mean, she was really. Plus, Miller was kind of running into the shots as well, so I'm sure that helped. But she has good sweeps, dangerous jiu-jitsu. Everything has looked good on the regional scene. Grappling seems on point. She's young. She's going to be making improvements. Y'all might think I'm making a case to pick Egger to win, and honestly, I wouldn't blame anybody if they did. Just considering all these things, but I'm still going to be picking Santos to get the win here by decision. I won't be investing heavily in this fight. Maybe put it on a big parlay, just because we haven't seen as much of Santos yet against good competition. So I will pick her to win, but I wouldn't be surprised if Egger pulled out a veteran, upset and just kind of got her down and held her down for 3 rounds. So next up, we got Keon Song taking on Kevin Jalse. And Song is 33 years old, 6 foot tall with a 71.5-inch reach. He is 21-7 and 5-3 in the UFC, and he's a plus 145 underdog. And yeah, Song is a striker, man. Has decent kickboxing. I thought he was kind of on his way out of the UFC after getting knocked out by Max Griffin and Ian Gary, but he bounced back with a win over Rolando Bedoya. I think Bedoya needs to drop down to 155. He's kind of a small welterweight. It just looked like Song was landing the bigger shots there. Song has a nasty right hand. He can be very dangerous. He's the only guy to drop Ian Gary in the UFC. He usually either gets the finish or gets finished. Aside from Bedoya, all of his wins in the UFC have been over guys that are no longer in the UFC, or struggle to get wins in the UFC. He has 9 wins by knockout, 9 wins by submission. He likes to be the one pressuring guys. We've seen that when he gets stuck on the outside, he has a lot of trouble, like in the Ian Gary fight. He's very powerful. He was blitzing in very well in his last fight, landing the bigger shots. Um, he was landing that straight left hand over and over. It was real nice. Once he makes a read, he really takes advantage of it. Has a nice jab. When he decides to throw it. His takedown defense looked pretty good. He shows a 67% takedown accuracy and 63% takedown defense. Lands over 4.40 strikes per minute. Sorry, not over. Lands 4.40 strikes per minute on average, but absorbs 5.86, which isn't good to absorb more than you land. The thing that scares me the most on picking him, here is that he's been knocked out 4 times in his career. So, and Jalset's a pretty big welterweight that hits pretty hard. So, so he's taking on Kevin Jalset. He is 30 years old, 6'2" with a 75-inch reach. He is 9-2 and 1-0 in UFC, and he's a minus 170 favorite. And I've been very impressed, with what I've seen researching Kevin. He trains at City Kickboxing, but he's from France. 4 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. Has a loss on his record way back in the day when he was 2-0 to Jack Della Maddalena. He fights like most City Kickboxing guys do. Stuff the takedowns, uses sharp striking on the feet. But there was a couple of his older fights on UFC Fight Pass I watched, and his more recent ones you can find on YouTube if you're interested. Um, he had been fighting at middleweight for a while in it was a few fights before coming to the UFC, and uses good inside leg kicks. Very good with his Muay Thai clinch with his knees. He's a judo black belt. Really nice elbows in close. Takedown defense is holding up well on the regional scene. I went back and watched his last loss, which was by split decision. Uh, that fight was, I think it was also at welterweight. I think he went up to 185 for a few fights after that. But it was against Caleb Rideout. Caleb was a very fast striker, and it was a very close fight. I don't know that it could have gone either way. I think Caleb had a good first round, but it was a very close fight, and I think it could have gone either way. So, even his one, loss other than Jack Della Maddalena is kind of questionable. Um, where was I at? Yeah, but Jalset's a good kickboxer, man. Technically sound striker. Would like to see him throw more volume. Is my only real knock on him. He's a huge welterweight. He's going to have a 3.5 inch reach advantage in this fight. He beat a very tough guy in his debut. Kiefer Crosby has fought in Bellator and all over the place. He's very experienced. Kevin counters very well. Uses his jab very well. He's very good at using his height and reach, which could help him a lot in this fight. He's very well rounded, dangerous submissions, and I think his last fight, his last win was his first win by submission, but he's obviously well rounded. I'm taking Jalset to win this fight. I think he's going to get a finish here. I'll take him to win by second round knockout. I just think he's gonna. I think he's has more tools to use here in this fight than Song. I think if Jalset wants to, he could probably get the fight to the ground and get a submission. But I don't know that he's going to have to. I think he's going to use his reach on the feet and eventually catch Song with a good shot. And he's reasonably priced too. So next up, we got Tatsuro Tiara taking on Carlos Hernandez. Did I skip a fight? Hold on. No, I guess they're just out of order. Uh, but yeah, we got Tatsuro Tiara versus Carlos Hernandez. And Tiara is 23 years old, coming up on 24 pretty soon. 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. He is 14-0 and 14-0 and 4-0 in the UFC, and he's a minus 500 favorite. And this is another really good grappler, man. He's very well rounded, throws nice calf kicks, nice straight shots on the feet. But he ultimately always gets it to the ground, man. Pretty much every fight. 3 wins by knockout, 7 wins by submission. Great submission defense. We've seen him work his way out of a really deep guillotine chokes and stuff like that. He has a long reach, man. He's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage. He can do it all, man. He's dangerous off of his back if anyone gets him there. He's young. He's going to be improving constantly. Looks better each time we've seen him, man. Has good fight IQ. Fight smart. Doesn't take a lot of damage. Doesn't brawl. Doesn't take unnecessary risk. He's good everywhere, man. And we've seen him hold his own on the feet with guys that are pretty good strikers. The numbers they have on UFC.com must not be updated because it says he has 41% takedown accuracy. He's gotten pretty much all of his opponents down, so in every fight. And he averages 2.41 takedowns per 15 minutes. Shows a 70% striking accuracy, lands 3.23 strikes per minute, and only absorbs 1.26 strikes per minute, which is pretty good. He's very good at avoiding the damage. He's got a clear advantage in the grappling here. Which has been Hernandez's weaknesses in the past. So, but Carlos Hernandez is 30 years old, 5'8" with a 67-inch reach. He is 9-2 and 2-1 in the UFC. He's a plus 385 underdog. And so Carlos had a long amateur career as well. So he's a lot more experienced than his record indicates. He went 13-2 as an amateur. Has really nice boxing, coming off a great performance, which should have been a knockout victory, but they changed it because of a headbutt on the slam. But it put his opponent out either way. I mean, come on. I think he knocked the guy out either way. I think he deserved his win there. He still got the win, but he deserved to have that as a knockout on his record. He puts out a lot of volume. He uses his jab very well. Nice side-to-side movement. He's very quick. He's hard to hit, man, and he's hard to get a read on. Really nice combinations in the pocket. Very technically sound as well. Keeps his hands up where they're supposed to be. Good head movement. He definitely has the advantage with the hands in this fight, I would say. He has 4 wins by submission. He should have won his last fight by knockout, but he doesn't have one on his record yet. So I give the power advantage to Tiara, but the striking to Hernandez. And the X factor here is definitely Tiara's grappling. And we have seen Hernandez taken down a lot throughout his last 4 fights or so. We saw how easily Nascimento was able to get him down and submit him, how quickly. And I got to go with Tiara because of that. So I'm going to take Tiara to win by submission round one. Next up, we got Hung Sung Park taking on Shannon Ross. And pull this fight up real quick. And Park is 28 years old. He is 5'7" with a 66-inch reach. He is 8-0 and 1-0 in the UFC. He's a minus 525 favorite. He has 3 wins by knockout and 4 wins by submission. He's only gone to a decision once in his career. Um, you know, it, until up until his fights on the road to the UFC, he never really fought any tough competition. His last 7 fights have all been finishes, and this appears to be a pretty easy layup fight for Park. He's well-rounded, great jiu-jitsu, throws a lot of feints to draw out the counters. He's very fast and aggressive, nice striking, great calf kicks. Has seemed to work on pacing himself a little bit. He's had a lot of quick finishes in his career. Really good at countering the kicks of his opponents with his hands. Very aggressive off of his back, throws good combinations. Has a lot of success when he's using his forward pressure. I don't know how long he's going to stay undefeated in the UFC, but I think he has a very good shot at winning this fight, um, for sure. And he's taking on Shannon Ross. He is 34 years old, 5'6" with a 66-inch reach. Both these guys have the same reach. He's 13-8 and 0-2 in the UFC, and he's a plus 410 underdog. So I don't really know what kind of connections Ross has or how he keeps getting shots in the UFC. He's been knocked out. He's been knocked out what 3 times in a row now? Yeah, yeah. He's been knocked out 3 times in a row now. Knocked out on the Contender Series, and still got he's still getting 3 more shots in the UFC. He's already had 2. Now he's getting another one. He has all the skills, man. He has good striking. He's well rounded. 7 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. But obviously, it's just his chin seems to be really bad at this point, and I don't mean that to be disrespectful. Um, just you know, 3 knockouts in a row. You got to say it. I mean, I don't think I really have to say much more, man. I'd love to see him win this fight. I'll be rooting for him, but I can't go with someone who's been knocked out 3 times in a row and has been finished in 4 of his last 5 fights. I mean, I hope he wins. I hope he turns his career around. I know he's in a real tough spot, but I've got to go with Park. I'm going to take him to win by knockout. Next up, we got Nazareth Haparas taking on Jamie Malarkey. And Haparas is 28 years old, 5'10" with a 72-inch reach. He is 15-5 and 7-4 in the UFC. He's a minus 170 favorite. He's got 9 wins by knockout. He has never won or lost a fight by submission. Um, oh no, he's never won a fight by submission. He was submitted 1 time at the beginning of his career, a very long time ago. Um, he's only lost to really tough guys. That he was knocked out by Drew Dober. Only losing to really tough guys. I think he lost to Dan Hooker. Nasrad's a very good striker, man. He had a really good performance or 2 very good performances in a row now. Has only had 1 finish in the UFC so far. He looked amazing in his last fight. He landed a ton of volume, lots of high level experience, great Muay Thai, kickboxing. Very good at using feints to set up his strikes. Nasty combinations. Mixes his kicks in very well. Great cardio. Um, he's not predictable in his striking. He's always given different looks. He's always good at creating angles. Very fast. Has great counter strikes. Goes to the body a lot with his punches. He was eating a lot of leg kicks in his last fight, and that's the only thing that worries me about him. I mean, he actually had to start fighting from the other stance because his leg was jacked up, but he still won the fight pretty dominantly. He's really good with his uppercuts and little hooks in close in the pocket. Uses a lot of forward pressure and just really wears guys down with the volume and the forward pressure. And he can fight well from both stances when he has to. Shows 79% takedown defense. Never really goes for takedowns. He's very good, man, and this should be a very fun fight for sure while it lasts. And he's taking on Jamie Malarkey. He is 29 years old, 6 foot tall with a 74-inch reach. He is 17-6 and 5-4 in the UFC. He's a plus 145 underdog, and he's gonna have a 2-inch reach advantage in this fight. I'm a fan of Jamie's, man. He's got all the skills as well. He's got good striking. He's not a terrible grappler. Has 10 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission. Has very good body lock takedowns. has more of a boxing type style with his hands, but mixes in the kicks pretty well. He's never been submitted, but he has been knocked out 4 times in his career, which worries me a little bit. He's well rounded. I feel like Nasserat is better on the feet, but Malarkey may have the power advantage. I think Malarkey could have a lot of success if he works the calf kicks like, Nasserat's last opponent did. But Jamie may have to get the fight to the ground if he wants to win this fight, and I'm not sure he's going to be able to. Malarkey lands and absorbs about the same amount of strikes per minute at 4.46 and 4.41. Has 77% takedown defense and shows 34% takedown accuracy. But it also says he lands 2.46 takedowns on average per 15 minutes, which isn't bad. So those two numbers seem like I don't know, maybe he shoots a lot of takedowns and doesn't get them. I don't know. Like I said, he's got a 2 inch reach advantage. I think I already said that. I'm going to be going with Nasrat here to win by decision. I think he lands the volume, on the feet and kind of edges out a decision here. The only reason I'm not taking him to win by finish is just because he doesn't go for takedowns and he hasn't really had any finishes in the UFC other than one. So next up, we got Andre Muniz taking on Jun Young Park. And Andre Muniz is 33 years old, 6'1" with a 78-inch reach. He is 23-6 and 5-2 in the UFC, and he's a plus 225 underdog. Yeah, so my opinion on this guy has flipped completely. I was really high on him. He has world class jiu-jitsu, supposedly. That's what he's known for. But looking back, his wins in the UFC, aside from Eric Anders, are all over guys who were on their way out of the UFC or never really got anything going in the UFC. Guys that were about to retire, and so man, yeah, Souza, was an amazing fighter, but I believe that was his last fight, his retirement fight. So I mean, I don't know, man. It's just it all looked good at the time, but Muniz has showed in his last 2 fights that he doesn't have much to offer off of his back. Paul Craig doesn't knock out a lot of people, but he finished Muniz with ground and pound. Muniz is good enough on the feet to survive in fights. His striking didn't look bad in the Brendan Allen fight, at least. He has 15 wins by submission, 4 wins by a knockout. All of his losses have been by finish, though. That's something you really got to look at. He's been knocked out 5 times and been submitted once, every single one of his losses. So his record indicates that he either gets a first round submission or gets knocked out. So I mean that's the gist of it. I mean, there's not a lot I can say in his favor here based on how he's looked in his last 2 fights. He may be the better grappler, but the pressure and pace of Park is what he's going to struggle with for sure. He is the bigger guy. He's going to have a 5 inch reach advantage, but that's nothing that Park isn't used to. And Park is, excuse me, Park is 32 years old, 5'10" with a 73-inch reach. He is 17-5 and 7-2 in the UFC. He's a minus 265 favorite. 5 wins by knockout, 6 wins by submission. He's won his last 3 fights by rear naked choke. His grappling has gotten just a lot better than it used to be, man. His best weapons are his pressure, his cardio. He's only lost to really tough guys, man. His last win was over a tough Russian guy, Albert Duraev. Very impressive there. He has nice boxing, great double leg takedowns, high crotch takedowns as well. He was known as a boxer earlier on in his career, but he's really worked hard on his wrestling, and he's using it in all of his fights now, pretty dominantly. And uses his jab very well. He was busting Duraev up in that fight with it. Stays in his opponent's face the whole time, man. He was eating a lot of big shots in his last fight, but he was kind of rolling with them and stuff and moving with them, and he was the one doing the more damage with just his jab. He was busting, Duraev up, had Duraev's nose bleeding and everything, and Duraev was hitting him with what seemed like big shots, but it wasn't doing anything to Park. So he doesn't use a lot of energy. Fights very safe, doesn't take a lot of risk. He's very good at managing distance. Has a really nice guillotine choke. What else? He's definitely the more well-rounded fighter in his approach to fighting, I think. And I think he's going to overwhelm Muniz in this fight and get a late finish. He's hard to keep down. He's good at swiveling his hips, and pushing the head down to get back to his feet. So I don't think Muniz is going to have an easy time keeping him down. He's got good takedown defense, and I see a late, TKO win for Park here. Yeah, I don't know if he submits Muniz, but I'll take a third round TKO. Next up, we got Sumadarji taking on Alan Nascimento. Give me just a second. I got to scroll down on my notes and get some water. So Sumadarji is 27 years old, 5'8" with a 72-inch reach. He is 16-5 and 3-2 in the UFC. He's a plus 245 underdog. And this is very much a striker versus grappler matchup. Sumadarji is an amazing kickboxer. He's a sniper, tall and rangy for the weight class. He's going to have a 2.5 inch reach advantage in this fight. 13 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. He's coming off a war with Matt Schnell where he almost knocked Matt out several times in that fight, but ended up losing by submission. It was a crazy fight, but all of his losses have been by submission. So obviously, submission awareness and defense are the weak parts of his game. He's very good at fighting long, throwing nice straight shots from the outside. Great kicks to all levels. Obviously, very powerful. Great counter striking. But this is a very bad matchup for him, in my opinion. His only shot at winning this is landing a big shot on the feet. Doesn't have the best takedown defense. He shows 100% takedown accuracy because he's only shot one takedown in the UFC and he landed it. Lands on average 4.83 strikes per minute. Absorbs only 2.75 per minute. Shows 67% takedown defense, but we saw him taken down very easily in his last fight. And if Matt Schnell can take him down, Nascimento definitely will be able to. Sumandarji has great footwork, very good at managing distance and moving in and out of the pocket very well, but um, I don't see this fight going his way. And Al Nascimento is 32 years old, 5'8", with a 69.5 inch reach. He is 20-6 and 2-1 in the UFC. He's a minus 290 favorite, and Allen is a very high level grappler, man. I thought he won the Ulanbekov fight. I mean, it was just a really grappling back and forth fight. I thought Nascimento won that. He's never been finished in almost 30 fights. Very good jiu-jitsu. He beat Jake Hadley, finished Carlos Hernandez. Um, does have nice kicks. Very good kicks to the body. Uh, great front kicks up the middle. Has nice trip takedowns, good body lock takedowns. Has 15 wins by submission, 1 win by knockout. Very good at creating scrambles on the ground and ending up on top. Really good sweeps. He's good enough on the feet to not get knocked out, and to give his opponents enough to think about to get his takedowns. Uses really good pressure on the ground, stays very heavy, and keeps guys down. He's so good on the ground. I see him dominating this fight and getting a submission probably pretty quickly. Kind of like he did with Carlos Hernandez. I'm taking Nascimento to win by submission round one. Next up, we got the co-main event. Anthony Smith taking on Khalil Roundtree. Of course, this fight was scraped together after Azamat Murzakanov was supposed to fight on this weekend's card with Roundtree and pulled out of the fight. So they threw this one on here because they needed fights, I would imagine. I bet they could have still had it on this weekend's card. They probably needed fights for this card and switched it. Um, so Anthony Smith is, well, hold on. I'm going to do Khalil Roundtree first. Um, I'll do Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith is 35 years old, 6'4", with a 76-inch reach. He is 37-18 and 12-8 in the UFC. He's a plus 205 underdog, and Smith has been around a long time. I don't think I agreed with him getting the decision in his last fight. He really hasn't looked like himself in his last two fights, which is a shame because I'm a big fan of his. He's very well rounded, great grappling and submissions, lots of finishes on his record. 18 wins by knockout, 15 wins by submission. And that's a very impressive resume, honestly, man. And his key to winning this fight would be his grappling. He's not going to want to stay on the feet with Khalil, although he could land a big shot. It's always possible. I think he's smart enough to pursue that game plan of using his grappling in this fight. So he does have a better shot at winning this fight. And if this fight was happening a few years ago, like when Smith was coming off his first win over Ryan Spann, I think Smith would have definitely been the favorite here, probably a big one. Maybe it's coming back off the injury for Smith and him still trying to get back to where he was. I don't know. But he is a tough dude, and you have to respect all of his skills. And he's going to be the bigger guy here as far as size, but Khalil's going to have a half-inch reach advantage. So not much of an advantage there. Smith has a nice lead left hook, uses his calf kicks very well. He was trying in his last fight to use more of a Muay Thai stance, light on the lead leg, but he kept going back to his normal stance. Pretty much he ended up fighting most of the fight back in his normal stance, just worried about his leg. Has a great submission defense. Lands on average 3.16 strikes per minute, but absorbs 4.45 strikes per minute. 49% takedown defense. His striking is nice, man. Good boxing. He's also taken this fight on very short notice, man. Khalil's already been in camp for a fight and just got pushed back a week, so I'm curious at how he's going to look, on such short notice. Basically a week, but Khalil Roundtree is 33 years old, 6'1", with a 76.5-inch reach. He is 12-5 and 8-5 in the UFC. He's a minus 240 favorite. 8 wins by knockout, no wins by submission. He's only been submitted one time, and Roundtree has really turned a corner in his career. Man, he's looked amazing. I thought Jacoby won that fight, but it was very close. You know, Khalil has really good Muay Thai, dangerous elbows and knees, fights very well in the clinch, dangerous calf kicks, and that crazy side kick to the knee that he finished Bukakis with. I'm not sure what that's called. I don't know if that's a oblique kick or what. I don't remember, but very powerful. It's about time we see him fighting this high up in the rankings. He definitely deserves it. I think he's going to have a speed advantage on the feet here, which will lead to him having the advantage there. As long as he can keep it on the feet, he has a great shot at winning this fight. His counters look great in his last fight. Fight southpaw, really nice straight left hand. I wouldn't be surprised if Anthony Smith pulled out an upset win here, man. There's part of me that thinks, hey, Khalil's looked pretty tired after the first round in a couple of these fights, and maybe Smith could take over if Khalil doesn't get a finish. But I think maybe it's Khalil's time now, man. I think he wins this fight. I think he probably wins this fight and ends up fighting Johnny Walker, after Ankalaev beats Johnny Walker when they fight again or whatever. But I'll take Roundtree to win. I don't know if he's going to get a knockout here. I think probably best case he does get a knockout because I think after the first round his shots of winning go down a little bit. But Smith's taking this fight on short notice, so who knows how his cardio is going to look. I think Khalil can at least win the first 2 rounds and then win a decision, or maybe get a first round knockout. So I'm going with him. Not super confident though. Next up, we got the main event. Yadong Song taking on Chris Gutierrez. And Yadong Song is 26 years old. He's 5'8" with a 67-inch reach. He is 27-1, 27-1, and 9-2-1 in the UFC. And he's a minus 355 favorite. He's got 9 wins by knockout and 3 wins by submission. And I'm a big fan of both these guys. Song has amazing boxing. He's very fast and explosive. And very fast and explosive, very powerful. And aside from the Corey Sandhagen fight, he's looked pretty much better each time we've seen him. In his last fight, his takedown defense looked great against a very good wrestler. Has really good combinations, really good cardio, 5-round cardio. He showed us that in his last fight. He won by 5th-round knockout. Very nice footwork, great calf kicks. I can't say enough good things about Song, man. He's good fundamentals with his hands, keeps his hands up where they're supposed to be. Very good at using his feints to set up his strikes. And, whenever he blitzes in, man, he really tears guys up, man. He hits so hard, in the pocket. And he's good at scrambling back to his feet, has a really nice uppercut, goes to the body really well with his hands. I think he's going to have the power advantage in this fight. I think he has better boxing as well. And I'm willing to bet if he wanted to, he may be able to take Gutierrez down here. I know he never does that, but I think it's definitely possible. So a lot of things are pointing to Song for me in this fight. He's taking on Chris Gutierrez. Um, he is 32 years old, 5'9", with a 67-inch reach. Both these guys have the same reach. He's 24-2 and 8-2-1 in the UFC, and he's plus 290 underdog. And 9 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. Chris's biggest advantage in this fight are his leg kicks. That's the only way I really see him winning this fight is if he destroys Song's leg in the first couple rounds and limits Song's mobility. If he does, that he may win. He's very good, great kickboxing, nice footwork as well. I just feel like if Pedro Munoz can beat Chris, Song can as well. It was kind of, I wouldn't say, I think Song's definitely a better striker than Pedro Munoz, but the way they fight in the pocket and throw those big hooks inside, that were hurting Chris. I think it's very similar. I'm more of a fan of Chris's, honestly, man. Even though I like both these guys, the difference in the way these guys strike is Chris throws a lot more straight, shots down the middle. Whereas Song likes to fight in the pocket with power shots, and they have the same reach. So I don't know. Normally, I would say the straighter shots, come out with the win, man. But I've just been more impressed with what I've seen out of Song, man. And I don't know if I agree with this line, Song being this big of a favorite, but I am going to be taking Song to win. As far as a method of victory, Chris has never been knocked out. He's only been submitted once. So I'm going to go with Song to win, by decision. I think we've seen him go 5 rounds. I think he has the advantage there. And yeah, I think he wins, man. I think he's going to win a decision. So, um, and then as far as my bets for this card, um, so I already told you guys I'm gonna have to post my parlays, put them together whenever they're up on Bovada, and I'll post them on my social medias. But as far as just single plays and shit on this card, I got play on Kevin Jousset at -170. That's a 1 unit play. We got a small play on Alan Carr. It's +115. It's a half unit play. I just feel like her grappling's good enough to where she's gonna win as an underdog. Pretty solidly, in my opinion. And then I got a 2 fight parlay on Nascimento and Tiara. That's -128, and that's a 1 unit play. And I haven't put this one in yet, but I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about Yadong Song and um, Park over Andre Muniz. That's a -128 as well, or -130, and that's a maybe, man. I haven't put that in yet. I'm just thinking about it. Something to think about. Seems like a pretty good line. I think Park definitely beats Muniz. So, and yeah, man. So as far as all that goes, that's all that. Let's just take a look real quick at the changes to the Austin card. And I can update you on that. Just if there's anything I need to update you on. I know Jalen Turner stepped in to fight Bobby Green. Um, I think that's really the only change to the card, man. Yeah, and I do think, man, I want Bobby Green to win this fight, man. I really do. I think it's a bad matchup for him, but it's also very short notice for Turner. So maybe Green does come out with the win. I wish it was. I wish it was 5 rounds rather than three, like it was supposed to be with Hooker. Um, I'm gonna pick Turner to win, man. I hope Green wins. I hope Green takes advantage of Turner taking it on short notice. I'm a big Green fan, but I'm gonna go with Turner on that. Um, but I hope Green wins, man. So, but yeah, man, that's it for me, guys. Please like and subscribe. As always, thank you for caring what I have to say. I really appreciate every single one of you guys. And hop on that Facebook group, man. I mean, some people post their bets in there sometimes, and they win money. I post all my stuff in there, man. Everybody wants to see everybody win money. At least I do. That's why I give out all my stuff for free. And yeah, man. So y'all have a good one, man. I'm out of here.